I apologize if I don't name the agencies because I really want to thank these guys so much. So just to everybody who was involved with this grab and go program, which is something that we can't take for granted on Guam because they canceled it in the NMI, except for Rhoda. You know what I mean? So I think this is something that, and that's why I keep saying this, something we need to be really grateful for, because in Saipan, people are going hungry because they couldn't find people to volunteer and to put themselves in a place where they're risking exposure.
And in Saipan, it's 2 confirmed cases. They're waiting on confirmation from public health on the suspected COVID death, which was announced Monday, I believe, in a press conference via Zoom.
Right. Let's go to the line here. We have Dafne Shimizu from Revan Tax. I know a lot of people are asking about tax refunds and just a whole bunch of right. So good morning, Dafne.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I guess just first of all, if we could just start with the stimulus checks, because that kind of seems to be on everyone's mind. I know that Revan Tax, because of the way that they're going to be distributing these checks, is involved. Can you kind of walk us through that process?
Absolutely. So, thank you so much again for having me on this morning to talk about what's called the Coronavirus Recovery Aid, Relief, and Economic Stability Act, and people are now referring to it as CARES. So I know that this is a hugely important item or of discussion for the community. And in the act, it's actually referred to as the 2020 rebate recovery payment for individuals. So we're also calling it stimulus. So some of the basic provisions I'm sure that people have heard about are income thresholds. And, there are $2,400, $1,200 payments for people who file married filing joint or head of household. Married filing joint is $2,400 for head of household, and for single, $1,200. And of course, there are phase outs for the threshold for that is $150,000 for married filing joint, $112,500 for head of household, and $75,000 for single, and for $500 each for each eligible dependent. And if you've already filed your 2019 or 2018 tax returns, there's really nothing additional that you have to do. Your data is already in our taxpayer database at Revan Tax. And again, if you have not filed, we've actually, we still have our Dropbox at the Barragata office if you wish to file in that way. If you file by Dropbox, we are requesting that you please make sure, just like if you were, filing when you come in and walk into our customer service area, when we're open, that you bring an extra copy and make sure that you have both your copy and the government's copy so that we can stamp and send them back to you. If you want us to mail it back to you, you can actually include a self-addressed stamped envelope. But if you want us to contact you, which I really recommend that people do, is that they put their contact information, their name, their phone number, and their email address, so that once we're ready to provide those back to the community, that we're able to contact you and let you know. So you can file your 2019 returns online as well. Right now, we have a bit of a limitation in terms of what could be filed online for income tax returns. You really can only file those taxpayers that have only W-2 or 1099 information can file, and you can't currently file if you have dependents. There are things that we're looking at right now in terms of trying to see how we might be able to do something to help, most especially to try to support what's going on with regards to prevention of the continued spread of the coronavirus. So those are things that we're looking into in our IT side. But you could always file at our Dropbox. Also, if you need to make payment with your tax return, you can go to the Treasurer of Guam, and I'm grateful that Treasurer of Guam has actually been open throughout this entire period at the ITC building. And so, and those are the basic things that I hope that people needed to know. Were there questions in particular that you guys had about the stimulus or the recovery rebate payment?
Right, Daphne. I just had a comment here from JD writes into our Facebook feed. What if we're still being billed from GMH and there's a claim against us? Is the stimulus check going to be garnished?
As far as I know, as we read the act, the only garnishments that will be applied will be for child support. Even if you have a tax due, a back tax due, or so our local government, those will not be garnished. So again, as far as we read the law, what's allowed for in terms of garnishments is only for the child support payments.
Daphne, so basically you said if we filed our taxes this year or last year, all we really got to do is
Sit back and wait.
Is it going to come from the states, or is it going to...
Is local money that's paying for it, and then we get reimbursed?
Well, so historically, and I think that if you just kind of look at our history, how it's always worked is that it's really been DRT and our local government that has, printed checks, and it really makes most sense that we would print the checks because we house all the data here. We have been actively in discussions with our federal counterparts, even in the last several weeks leading up to the signing of the CARES Act by our president. And then most especially since it's been signed, we've been corresponding with them through the weekend, studying the law. We met with them just the other day as well, and we have another meeting with them this week. So, with regards to, the CARES Act, there are still certain things that are being discussed in terms of the implementation, but the expectation really is that, and the discussions have all surrounded that the payments will be, definitely cut out of Guam or out of our DRT account, or out of DRT if there are checks that are being printed.
Daphne, how much money do you guys have a ballpark? So it's $1,200, $2,400 for couples. How much total money are we talking about that the residents of Guam are going to see?
In terms of the total amount, that's something that our team is still working to I estimate and address. And of course, we have to work with our federal counterparts as well on working to develop an estimate so that way those can be funded to our government. But that's something we don't currently have, but we're definitely working on. And again, I have been mentioning that, in the CARES Act, there is a provision which states that the Treasury itself has 15 days to report to the Congress on its implementation plan for its plan for how it's going to be utilizing the funds that have been appropriated for this program. And so, there's still a lot of things that we're actively discussing with our federal counterparts. And as we get those information, we'll definitely be sharing with the community. We want to make sure that everybody is up to date and is aware of all of those provisions.
So when was this signed again? This was last week. So 15 days from last week, the U.S. Treasury has to report to Congress.
Right.
So that's another 2 weeks.
Right.
And then once that's reported to Congress, then DRT can start cutting the checks?
Well, so even I think stateside, although, even nationwide in the news and the things that I've read from the IRS state that the hope is that within 3 weeks of the signing of the act that there will be payments. It's really unclear as to when. I don't know. I mean, like the full timing. Of course, I can't imagine how many checks that the IRS themselves or direct deposits that they're going to have to make.
Right.
But the start of it on stateside time is about 3 weeks. When I was mentioning with regards to the implementation plan that's supposed to be provided to the Congress by the Treasury, again, they have 15 days. I don't know in the meantime or how long it will actually take. It could take less time. But in the meantime, we have been actively communicating and reaching out to our federal counterparts. We have not been, waiting for them to reach out to us. We recognize this is an important issue, and on the Guam side, just like with the IRS, they have actually mentioned several times, and it's even mentioned in the CARES Act, that these payments, they really need to be processed and paid out as soon as possible, because our Congress, our government recognizes the needs of our people. And so those, we're going by that guidance. The IRS itself, there are campuses that are across the nation because of the current COVID-19 situation that are closing. I know the Philadelphia campus is closed. The Washington, D.C. campus is closed. And then, as of last week, at least I believe the Austin and Ogden campuses were still open, but there was potential for them to be closed. The IRS themselves, when they say they're closed, they're not even going into the office at all to check mail and things like that. So they're only receiving correspondence via e-fax, and their as they telework. So it's difficult to tell. Again, on the Guam side, and just like on the federal side, we are going to follow the law, and the law says that we must get them out as soon as possible. And our team, has been reading, reviewing, studying, working to make sure that we have a plan in place so that we can get these payments out as soon as possible to our people.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make sure it's tax 2018 and 2019, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So
go ahead,
the way
Dafne.
that the law reads, if you don't mind, the way that the law reads is that we utilize 2019 as a base, but if you haven't filed a 2019 return, you can use 2018. And so, again, for those individuals who have already filed a 2018 return, and if your status in terms of being married or single or head of household hasn't changed and your AGI hasn't changed, then really there's no need to rush to do or to file a return because your name will already be on the database, and the amount of your stimulus check should be, again, as long as there's no additional changes to your AGI, to your status, to your number of dependents, then there shouldn't be an issue with regards to your payment or how much you get. If you have not filed a return, a 2019 return, like I mentioned, you can file at our Dropbox or file online if you qualify to file online. Mm-hmm. And we're, again, working to try to figure out how we can expand our options so that way we can make it easier for people to file.
Dafne, I just got a tax refund question. People are wondering about tax returns. I think we just released October, right?
I know some came out will be mailed out this week.
Right. So where are we with, people who filed in January? I know they probably need it. So how do we juggle getting out the tax refunds with possibly paying out these stimulus checks?
Well, I mean, the role of rev and tax in terms of refunds, and I'm sure you're familiar with the permanent injunction, and mm-hmm. that final judgment was issued by Judge Consuelo Marshall back in 2013 as a result of a class action suit. So with regards to the permanent injunction and the final judgment, rev and tax is required to make sure that we have and we process and print out checks within 6 months right. of the due date or the deadline, whichever is later. And so on our side, that's our charge, and that's what we make sure that we do. And so actually, and you can always find the tax refund status on our website, www.guamtax.com. It'll state exactly what's in the releases that go out. It will indicate how many refund checks have been have been released or mailed during the week, and how much the total is for those right. Those checks. And it also indicates what period the file date is through. So for this week, we actually will be issuing or mailing out checks for error-free returns that have been filed through October 19. So we're a little bit ahead of the 6 months at this time. But in this past year, I'm proud of the fact that we've worked very diligently to make sure that we're consistent in terms of the way that we pay out. When I started back in March was when we started making sure that we were consistently processing, I think, on a weekly basis and communicating to the community, because we recognized that there were so many questions regarding tax refunds and uncertainty about when things were going to be paid. But I think because of the consistency in payments, generally people will know approximately where we are if you're following it week to week.
Right.
And if there are questions still about refunds, so say, an individual says, okay, I filed through October 19, I've waited through the week, and I still haven't received a refund. Is there something wrong? We still have we have on our website a contact us section. You could always get online at guamtax.com, go to the contact us section right at the bottom left corner, and submit your question regarding that. And we actually also have our PIN administrator, who is our acting income tax supervisor. Her email address is pinadmin, that's PINADMIN, at revtax.guam.gov. And she's actively monitoring our mailbox and corresponding with taxpayers. I was talking with her the other day. I was trying to talk with her the other day while she was communicating with taxpayers. So even though Rev and Tax our agency is actually shut down, we're still working to do our best to provide the best service that we can to our community. But with regards to refunds, that's really where we are. And again, I'm grateful that we've had a good relationship with DOA and have been able to work very well with Director Byrne to make sure that we're consistent as we process returns, and that we always make sure that we are actually in line or working in line with and not violating the permanent injunction.
Daphne, I understand with the injunction the 6 months, but what people were asking is there any effort afoot to pay out any refunds earlier than 6 months because of the situation that a lot of people are facing?
Well, as I mentioned, I think we're actually a couple weeks early. If you count from October 19, really these, if we were going to be on time or just within the 6 months, these would have been printed and processed in the week of April 19. So we're really at April 1 right now. So actually, we are a little bit accelerated in terms of the plan to try to accelerate. That's something that I'm not aware of at this time. On the revenue tax side, again, our charge is making sure that we process, that we can stay on top of and make sure that what we do is in line with the law, and that's what my team ensures that we do.
Okay. I wanted to ask about motor vehicle registration, because people actually have been asking about that. And if you could tell us what's happening with DMV.
Sure, absolutely. So, yesterday we released our second volume in our COVID-19 services series. And, we actually issued our first volume, which covered several services back in March 18. That was volume 1. Mm-hmm. Yesterday we released volume 2. In volume 2, we made updates to our services and to other items based on making sure that we reflect any changes due to the additional executive orders that have been issued. With regards to motor vehicle registrations and driver's licenses and business licenses, we actually try to keep the same, the same deadlines and the same criteria. So with regards to registrations expiring in March and April, if there are vehicle registrations which expire during those months, they'll be extended through May 31. Any late fees will be waived for those period as long as the renewal is done by May 31. And this applies as well to renewals for driver's licenses and Guam IDs, and also business licenses. And if we do have a COVID-19 section on our website, so if anybody has questions about any of our services, we've done our best to try to identify those things that we thought people would have questions about. Our COVID series volume 2 is actually like 5 pages long, but we did it. It's like it's an outline format. Mm-hmm. We've tried to make it as easy to read as possible. We've kept with regards to those things that we updated, we've tried to keep the template. If it was item A in the volume 1, it's also item A in volume 2. So we've tried to keep some consistency for the ease of our taxpayers and our community, and making sure that they're able to cross-reference and to tell if there are updates. So again, if people refer to volume 2, they'll be able to see that with regards to motor vehicle registrations, those have been extended. There's nothing that they need to do. They can try to, if they are able to renew online. And we're really doing our best to support the social distancing efforts by trying to encourage everybody to do things online as much as possible. So if you've already done online registration before for your renewals for motor vehicle, you'll be able to do that again. And if you run into any issues, like I mentioned, those things can be resolved through our website, at our contact us section of our website, or through our PIN admin person who will gladly assist our taxpayers.
For people who don't have internet access, is there a hotline, or do they just call 311?
Actually, 311 is the best way. So what happens is, I believe when 311 is called, then they get patched over to our line at Revenue Tax. Okay. But again, I'm very pleased. Our team, again, we have a great team, and they're so willing and wanting to and desiring to help the community. Our team was fielding so many calls, not just on the 311 line, but also, contacting taxpayers who had communicated it with us through the website, or through our contact us section of our website, and through email to our PIN administrator.
Okay.
Right, Daphne. So the 311, that's not like a public health affiliated line. That's a rev and tax line.
I believe that the way 311 works is that it's, and I could be wrong. It is. The way I understood it was that it was a triage for any. It was a place where the calls could be forwarded for any particular purpose. I don't believe that it was specific to public health.
Okay.
All right. So the website again is myguamtax.com, correct?
We actually have two websites, which can be a little bit confusing. We have a myguamtax.com, and on myguamtax.com, that's where we have the online portal for registrations for motor vehicle registration renewal, and also Form 1040s. Form 1040 filings, if you wish to try to do those online. Our guamtax.com website is for all other types of online services. We've separated it in that way, but you can go to either of the websites. They should have the same information. And again, all of the releases that come out from the Joint Information Center that relate to rev and tax, we actually have those on our website. They're not the Joint Information Center releases themselves. They're only specific to our rev and tax services. So if you want to know anything about rev and tax and what's going on there, you can definitely get on the website and you can access it at the COVID-19 section.
Daph, just a real quick comment here, a question about the stimulus. Would the people without a job who stay home, or stay-home parents with 6 or more under Section 8, would they be included in the stimulus? Is it really just, it goes down to if you filed taxes in 2018 and 2019, right?
Well, and thank you for that question. It's a really, really great question. So there are individuals who actually who have not filed returns because they fall below the income threshold. If you fall below the income threshold, then you're going to have to file a tax return. Unfortunately, if you have dependents, you won't be able to do that online. But again, if you will be able to file utilizing our Dropbox, and so you'll have to go ahead and file a return. You could drop that at our Dropbox. We're working really to try to expand what we're allowing online. That's stuff that I'm hoping that we can, that we can get out to the community, because again, we're really doing our best. The IRS has an initiative called People First, and we're really trying to work and consistent with what the IRS is doing. They're really doing their best to reduce as much as possible any in-person contact, and not only to avoid exposure to our employees, but also to avoid exposure to the community. And of course, I was watching on NHK with my husband about these microparticles which stay in the air. So try to avoid any exposure to these microparticles and the possibility that people will become exposed to this COVID-19, which is again something that is quite scary. And so we're doing our best to try to contribute to the efforts to reduce exposure to that.
Right, Daphne. I know we had a little short convo yesterday afternoon about how seriously you take, sanitizing, and how seriously you are taking it for your employees.
Absolutely. For us, we actually have taken the initiative to do several things. One, and I'm grateful to Public Health and to our National Guard, we have been able to avail of some briefings and some of the information that they have. They've helped to provide our team with information on how to do decontamination, on how to make sure that they are safe when they come into the workplace or when they have to go out into the public, because as you know, we're still out working to enforce the various executive orders and to service the community. That's one thing that was hugely important. We actually, like yesterday, I made sure that I let the team know that we need to post signage around our building for those individuals that have to come in, and those people must, adhere to social distancing. They must make sure that, there's hand washing, and I'm very strict about it. I don't want to have anybody take.
Hello?
And I've actually, out of my own, because I know it's difficult for, people to get PPEs, I was able to, out of my own PPE stash to provide some PPE.
Daphne, wait. Back up. You can't just say you have a PPE stash and we're going to let you slide on that.
No. Well, you know what it is my dad has been very ill.
Okay.
And so my brother, when he came to visit from Japan, had brought, several boxes of masks. And they're not the N95 masks. They're just the regular masks that at least prevent, some of the microparticles or, things, liquid from, coming out of your mouth or your nose when you sneeze. So at least it helps to protect the people around you. And I believe it also, to a certain degree will help, you, because if you wear it, you're less likely to touch your face or your eyes, your nose, or your mouth. So, I suppose that in my life, I've tried to look at the positive things that kind of come out of things. I mean, even, with my dad becoming ill, there were certain things that, resources that we were able to have that I had even forgotten that we had until I went into my dad's room to kind of help clean up some things. But I found a bunch of masks and I was able to give that to my team. So, those things are very critical and important. The health of our community is very important. The health of the people at our agency and our people in general. And so that's why, again, it's very important. I know, and at this time, it's very difficult for the community. There are services, perhaps, like we are not able to do certain things like new business licenses and new registrations and new driver's licenses. But, we're really doing our best to help prevent the spread of this COVID-19. I take it very seriously. You will ask my team. I have been communicating with them. I've been really adamant that they do social distancing. I have, and I tell them, now most especially, I know, with regards to our culture, and most especially, I'm from the South, and, we're very, we get mamala. We don't like to hurt people's feelings. But I think now, most especially, it's important for us to be very straightforward and to let people know that, if you are coming into within 6 feet of me, I need to let you know, and I'm going to move back, and I'm going to advise you. And because it's really important, and so those are the things that we've done at Rev Tax. Again, and you're right, Chris, it's been very important for me that my team is safe, and also because, as you know, this just seems to be so highly contagious. Not just the team being safe, but also their families, because I would hate for anybody to be exposed to that, after coming to work at the agency.
You're reporting to work every single day, huh?
Well, so I've been in and out of the office depending on the need. We have people, again, who are enforcing they're doing enforcement of the executive orders. They've come in. We have people who have to come in and to monitor our drop boxes, to monitor our mail, to answer the phone. And those are important because, there are payments that still are coming in through the mail. There are payments that are coming in through our drop boxes. And our team, they very much care about making sure they are, taking care of our responsibilities and want to make sure they're staying on top of things. So we still do have some people that are going into the office. We are just not open to the public, and that's something that's important. If our agency perhaps was a little bit smaller, that may be a different situation. But because, the health and safety guidelines, right? We have at our agency about 180, almost 200 people. So there's no way that if we were even just open, that we would be able to meet the,
social distancing
and what's considered healthy in terms of guidelines, right? Mm-hmm. So those, and so those things are very important, and those are kept at the forefront as we work to plan how we do things, during the day.
Okay, Daphne. Yep. I'm not going to get into, you told me about your routine when you touch things in the office. I'm just going to say for our audience, you're very thorough. I appreciate that.
I know. Well, you know what? I know it sounds funny, but I'll tell you, when I go into the office, now I'm so mindful of everything that I touch. So, from the time I get out of my car and then I, touch the door to get into the office, I make sure I take note of which hand touches the door. So if it's my left or right hand, I'm like, okay, once that's exposed, then I only use one hand to open the door, and I use one hand to go and, do things. Then by the time I get to my office, I make sure, because I have these wipes on my desk, I wipe down my hands that were, both of them, and then I know that my space is generally not COVID doesn't have any COVID virus that's alive anymore, and I'm very mindful of that. But I think everybody is, because of the way that the situation is, and I hope everybody is actually, because this is a very serious situation and honestly unprecedented, and really, I think a lot of times surreal. I think that I did mention to Chris that I had watched a show. I don't know what it was called.
I think it's Outbreak.
Maybe I don't know what the name of it is, but I know there was a little monkey who came into this.
Yeah, that was. I think it's based on a Michael Crichton movie or book, Outbreak. Yeah, and then they quarantined the whole town, and the president wanted to nuke it. And
absolutely. So that was.
Don't watch those kind of movies, Daphne.
So that was before we had this COVID-19 situation. And again, it was like it's something that you just don't. It's unfathomable. Like you wouldn't believe that would actually happen, but we're seeing it nationwide.
Do you make your own hand sanitizer? Just curious.
Well, you want to know something? So our team did go to they went to the decontamination training at the National Guard. And the National Guard, and so I was told by our team that they did provide them with guidelines for how to create a solution. And the solution they used, because I thought, okay, well, I need to make sure we either get it or we buy it, procure it. And my team says, no, ma'am. They have advised that we use dishwashing liquid and bleach, and that should be sufficient. So, I know that we talk a lot about washing hands, but, even Public Health says, if you wash your hands, but you touch the knobs on the sink and you touch the doorknob, that may be a problem. So, we need to not only wash our hands, but I think bleach helps as well, because, who has time to wash their hands for 20 seconds? I'm sorry. I know that sounds terrible, but, I know that's the guideline, but perhaps maybe with regular soap. And I still do try to count for 20 seconds, but I think that, when you add bleach, obviously that helps to help, with regards to what it's able to kill. And I hope that Public Health, perhaps Public Health may correct me on that, but the solution that our team is going to be using is going to be dish soap and with a little bleach. And so then that way, as we're washing our hands, we just have to make sure that we don't get it on our clothes, because it's going to cause some problems. But, at least we'll be safe and healthy.
Right on. Daphne, we
got to run. Thank you for that tip.
Thank you so much.
Duly
Sabrina's just really happy she found someone else who makes their own hand sanitizer and who's taking this as seriously as she is. So.
Well, she's smart. Sabrina's smart. That's why I've always admired you, Sabrina.
Thanks, Daphne.
Thank you, Daphne.
All right. So have a great day.
Thanks for everything you guys are doing, you and your staff.
I tell you to wash your hands, but I think you're good.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks again.
You too.
Bye.
There you go. Daphne Shimizu, Rev Tax
Very
Director.
thorough. She's very thorough. I really admire that.
Yeah. We talk about competent people. Sounds pretty competent. 8:41. Let's keep it going here, and we're going to bring Vice Speaker Senator Talina Nelson onto the show here. Good morning, Vice Speaker.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Half a day.